And so, folks, we are a group of reporters from diverse institutions in a conversation with the Commander-in-Chief of the Economic Freedom Fighters of Liberia, CIC Emmanuel Gonquio, as he's expected to speak to us on national issues surrounding the Supreme Court ruling in the impasses of the House of Representatives. Honorable Gonquio, welcome to the media.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad, as usual, to face some of the brightest people in the media landscape.
So welcome the Honorable CIC of the Economic Freedom Fighters of Liberia. Well, today Liberia witnessed the ruling of the Supreme Court of Liberia as it relates to the it is an ongoing still quote-unquote speakership between the majority bloc and that of the minority bloc, or the fanatic cover bloc. Yesterday, the Supreme Court of Liberia ruled and said that the actions of the lawmaker is ultra-virus, and as such, they're asking lawmakers to go back and conduct themselves accordingly. Now, you want to respond to this issue. What exactly is your take?
Well, I think the Supreme Court did not offer any substantial ruling. The Supreme Court presented herself as coward or cowardly in the ruling on yesterday. They mixed out on opportunity to prevent the country from going into full constitutional crisis. They exacerbated the crisis by the quote-unquote ruling they came up with yesterday. So from the perspective of the EFL, we believe that the Supreme Court did not do justice to the Liberian people. The Supreme Court did not offer any new precedent that, even the law school, as I said on my Facebook page, that the law school will use in many other rulings in the future. We have had a situation where in the legislature, people usually express dissatisfaction about the leadership of a particular speaker, and they have the intention to remove that speaker. At the end of the day, the Supreme Court gets involved, but then can't come up with substantial ruling. So we have had no case precedent where, in the future, we can be able to render our judgment on account of the Supreme Court ruling. So yesterday was a missed opportunity once again. We have thought that the Supreme Court would be definite and set clear precedents. But if you say ultra-virus, without being specific as to whether the majority bloc, is acting unconstitutional, or the minority bloc is also acting unconstitutional. You just say ultra-virus without being so specific. You went forward to explain Article 33 of the Constitution, which talk about numbers. In legislative politics globally, it's all about numbers. So you redefine quorum and confirm that the majority bloc, truly do have a quorum. So it means that they can do business and they can be presided over, by the deputy speaker. So what if the majority bloc reconvene on Tuesday and say, because we have the deputy speaker, and we have the number, we can proceed to do business? You have created room for the executive now to penetrate and for the executive to make decisions in the affairs of the legislature, because the executive now, based on the Supreme Court ruling, the executive will say, look, the Supreme Court have said that, once you have 37 members and you have, the deputy speaker presiding, you can do business. So the executive will soon start sending almost all the communication that will come from the executive will now go to the majority bloc based on the Supreme Court ruling, even though they were not definite. The olive group from the majority bloc will say, as far as we are concerned, the fact that the Supreme Court did not render our sitting in the joint chamber illegal, because there is nowhere in the Supreme Court ruling that says that the majority bloc sitting in the joint chamber is illegal. So therefore, the members of the legislature who say, or the majority bloc will say that whatever we did in the joint chamber is constitutional, because you never render our action illegal. You only say ultra-virus that refer to some proceedings and some actions, but you were never specific. So I think the Supreme Court did not do the Liberian people justice. The Supreme Court exacerbated the crisis. The Supreme Court plunged the country into another constitutional crisis, and that's what I say in my initial statement. They acted so chaotic, and I think members of the Supreme Court in Brent should not be acting chaotic. They need to be men enough. They need to be women enough, to say what exactly it is that the law is referring to. For us to continually have people in the Supreme Court behaving the way the current Chief Justice and the justices in the Supreme Court did, I think they undermine the democracy of our country and set a wrong precedents. I don't think they deserve to even be a member of the bench at the Supreme Court. None of them deserve to be there.
So, Honorable, my concern basically is drawn to the decision taken by the majority bloc that has to do with the election of Rachel Kuhn as Speaker, where there have been this controversy of two speakers in one house. What do you think of Rachel Kuhn election as Speaker?
But that's what I'm just saying to you. I've said the Supreme Court did not say the sitting of the majority bloc in the joint chamber is illegal. So they could just hang on that and say, but the Supreme Court did not say our action was illegal. So then we're going to have a situation where, we have two speakers. Liberia is a confused state. A state with two speakers, we haven't seen that before. So the Supreme Court needed to be very clear. Giving a ruling that distance says the Supreme Court from the happenings of the legislature was not. You already started on a go for it. The Supreme Court started by explaining the role of the executive, explaining the role of the legislature, explaining the role of the judiciary. Brilliant ideas to put everybody on par. The Supreme Court also did a brilliant job initially by saying that they have power to interfere with activities of the legislature once it's contravened the law. So now, if you are coming up with a ruling, ultra vires, meaning something is wrong and something was not done rightfully, be specific as to what was done wrong, so that in the future, because you see, most of the opinion of the Supreme Court is what they put teaching in the law school. So how would the law school teachers explain this to the students at the Louis Adam Grant School of Law?
So let's look at the definition for ultra vires. Yes, you have to look at the definition of ultra vires. Okay. So using power that is invalid.
Yeah.
All right. Something that you
above you.
Scope beyond your scope of your authority.
So other people are saying, like for example, I would love to mention one of the lawmakers who I spoke to yesterday, right after the Supreme Court's ruling. And is the district lawmaker, Honorable Yeke Koluba. He was celebrating that since the embattled Speaker J. Francis Kofa ran to the court, and the court, came out to describe the actions of the lawmakers as ultra vires. That is, the court is directly telling the majority bloc that their decisions is actually invalid, and they are wrong.
What specific decision that the Supreme Court is referring to? There are things happening in the legislature. One, the majority bloc is having regular session presided over by the deputy speaker. Are you saying that actions violate the norms of the Constitution? You needed to be very clear. Are you saying that the elections of Rachel Kuhn as speaker violate the norms of the Constitution? You also need to be very clear. You can't just come and throw blanket words and say ultra vires and everybody confused, and you think that we're supposed to believe what you're saying. The Supreme Court acted cowardly. The Supreme Court lacks substance. The Supreme Court put justice on sale. The Supreme Court undermined the Constitution of the country. The Supreme Court undermined the democracy. The Supreme Court missed out on opportunity to get things right in the country.
Let me just. Why do you think the Supreme Court, according to it was now bold enough to have come out to make a specific decision on this?
The Supreme Court has always reduced itself to political interferences. I gave an example of a case between the economic freedom fighters of Liberia and the government of Liberia under George Weah. It is clear that cases relating to elections must be expedited. We took George Weah to court for undermining the Code of Conduct. The Code of Conduct was very effective, and he came up with executive order that we felt, somebody needed to challenge because he was undermining an existing statute. Up to today, even though that case was relating to elections, up to today, that Supreme Court has not ruled in the EFL versus the government of Liberia case because they do not want to embarrass George Weah. So they do not want to embarrass George Weah. So the Supreme Court has always reduced itself to political interferences. And because of political interferences, the Supreme Court cannot make a bold decision. And that's what I said.
Do you support this opinion of other lawmakers, the most especially Omoyeke Koruba, that the Supreme Court was bribed, where he mentioned the director of the NPA bringing about 90 kids on the bench to influence the ruling of the Supreme Court?
I do not have a fact as to whether they were bribed, but I'm saying they are cowards.
Let me just squeeze this.
These actions alone,
I can verify. To just accuse somebody that they've been bribed and 90,000, I did not see 90,000 going. I can confirm that 90,000 was given. How do I agree with you about that 90,000 was given?
Speaking of political interference with the court, what do you mean?
Yes, you have to be specific as
interfering
well.
politically with the judiciary system of our
country.
We are looking at the executive in terms of the legislature.
So the interferences come from the political big guns in the country.
Such as
people who are quote unquote potential presidents of the country. People who think that, the Supreme Court guys always believe that, okay, if we don't play this smart role, John Brown becomes president tomorrow, they're going to get us out.
Mr. President,
this is a job. Look, listen, let me tell you.
No, Mr. President,
to be on the bench, is something that everybody.
Mr. President, wait. You just, describing the Supreme Court of Liberia that, it has been interfering, what have you, and it lacks the independence to be bold to rule in this case. Now you are speaking to the media as well. You say the Supreme Court is being interfering and what have you. Can you please be specific exactly? Who is interfering?
I just said to you, political big guns are interfering. Political big guns are interfering.
Some have been accusing the executive. This is what I'm saying.
Political big guns are interfering with the Supreme Court.
And the Supreme Court as well.
I'm being specific as a political big guns.
CIC just bring my concern.
George Weah all around the place interfering with the Supreme Court decision. So you want me to be specific?
The executive were accused.
The return lawmaker accused the vice president.
The executive.
He accused the executives for playing of political chicanery around the judiciary. Are you measuring to that?
So it's the right of the District 10 lawmaker to accuse the vice president of interfering with the removal of Fulani Kofa as a speaker. It's a right of he's entitled to his opinion. But what I can say is that I'm confused when people say the vice president is trying to. Does that suggest that the seditions that are against Fulani Kofa are being bought by the vice president? Does that suggest that Tomo Fala is being bought by the vice president? Does that suggest that all the CDC lawmakers that are fighting Fulani Kofa are being bought by the vice president? There are certain elementary arguments I don't get myself involved in. Because if CDC will allow herself, knowing that they are the official opposition in the country, for the vice president, who harbors a future presidential ambition, will then influence the CDC legislative caucus to go against Fulani Kofa, then I think the CDC as a political party is sick. It means George Weah is not providing leadership to the CDC. It means there's nothing called CDC. It means CDC is not institutional. So I can't go, diving into that elementary argument.
What's your call now to the Supreme Court of Liberia?
I think going forward, the Supreme Court need to be bold when there are constitutional crises. We want to see a Supreme Court that exemplifies and show leadership like other Supreme Court around the world. It can be a Supreme Court and you are afraid. See what will happen in the United States, with the abortion law. You saw members of the bench being so bold, clear, decisive on their decision as to where to stand. We find ourselves in a society where the justices of the Supreme Court cannot be bold to any issue. They come up with big words, utter virus, and confuse the whole society. The Fulani Kofa blast celebrating victory, the Tomo Fala and Richard Kumbla celebrating victory. You put the country in complete chaos and mess. The Supreme Court created a mess yesterday, and I think they need to desist from this.
Just before we can go, many Liberians concerned, why is CIC and EFL after tense politics in our country, after they supported executive, got job and resigned? Why is CIC and EFL?
Well, as you can see, our headquarters, we are busy renovating our headquarters. We are busy putting into place structures. We are busy planning for our national convention. We are busy monitoring the progress of the government, the challenges of the government. And I think a lot of the time people don't read. My page has been very active. We've been offering critique of the government. There are things we disagree with. Some of the things we disagree with yesterday, we still disagree with them today. I was on OGFN the other day, and Clara Johnson was putting me on record. I've said I still disagree that Meta should be in the country. I still disagree that CTM should be in the country. I still disagree that things that were done wrong that we have not done as a alliance government, that were not done and still not being done. I still disagree. We need to fix the country because that was the commitment we made before coming to power. And if we get to a point where we realize that the government is not proceeding the way it should, we have given the government 1 solid year, uninterrupted. We only been able to critique the government in-house. We've been able to critique them outside at about 30%. 70% of our critique has been in-house because there's no room to play politics, or there's no room to behave that you want to play smart out of people. We are members of the government. So if there are things going wrong, it is our responsibility to work behind the scene to fix it. If we get to a point where even though we played a minimal role in the government, we are not playing major role in the government, we are not major decision. I'm a civil servant in the government, I hold no appointed position. So if we get to a point where we feel that the government is enjoying our party reputation, we'll make a decision. As it stands, we want the government to succeed. We are doing everything to support them behind the scene. We're having regular conversation with the president and cabinet ministers. We are erecting checkpoints as we're supposed to do officially. We are documenting our disagreement and communicating with them that we disagree on this policy. In the future, if they cannot change the current approach of governance, when we come out, we will show our disagreement. We say, look, these were some of the policies we disagree on. So the EFL remains vibrant. Nothing has changed. You see our headquarters.
We are concluding on the Supreme Court's ruling here yesterday. All right. So, what do you foresee the House of Representatives in the next few weeks?
And most especially information of our national budget hearing.
When the members of that House still remain separate.
Well, that's your challenge. That's why I just told you the executive now that is being confused over the last few months. The executive has been confused as to who they're going to do business with. The Supreme Court inability to be very bold and decisive has created a loophole for the executive to penetrate. The vacuum is not there. The Supreme Court has just validated that 37 President Mikoran and can do business and they can be presided over by the Deputy Speaker. That loophole is sufficient now for the executive to start doing business with the majority bloc.
He has started already.
So I just told you. So that loophole is just sufficient. So I think what will happen, we'll see a long process, but the executive will not hold the country hostage. They will do business with the
So what can you predict of the State of the Nation address?
Well, I see if we don't solve the problem, the State of the Nation address will be chaotic. That's all I can say.
Mm-hmm.
It will be chaotic. It is from the citizens or the legislature angle.
It will be from the legislature because the citizens got nothing to do with what happened at the legislature. If you can't solve the problem up to January for the president to address the country, you're going to have, what if, Fulani Kova Blood decide that nobody going to that Capitol building, they will disturb. Nobody going there. They will disturb, and the president will not go there because they firstly need to work on the president. As it stands, we don't know who is the legitimate speaker. Who's going to preside? When the president addressing the nation, the speaker preside. So who's going to preside? Is it Fulani Kova that going to preside, or a Richard Puna going to preside? So you see, the Supreme Court is confused.
Can we say for the ruling for the Supreme Court still recognize the embattled speaker, Fulani Kova, as the legitimate speaker?
At the same time, the Supreme Court is recognizing the 37 people as official number to do business. At the same time. So the Supreme Court is just confused. They're just confused. Group of confused people sitting there in that building.
So, okay, Raz, anyway, maybe, I don't know my colleagues may have questions right here, but once more you said the Supreme Court is interfering or is receiving certain level of interference, or it has been maybe controlled by a certain group of people, maybe in the government or in the past government. Though you are not specific, the only person name you call it right now is the former president Joshua.
But he said he was coming to change all the narrative, so he was bold. He was interfering. At least I've not seen other leaders of the country saying we will get involved. But Joshua said he will get involved and he will solve the problem. that getting involved is a bold step to say I will get involved.
What
with all this person.
role do you think the President of the Republic of Liberia, His Excellency President Joseph Boakai, can play in this case?
Well, I think as the elders in the country, he can have dialogue with both sides and see how they harmonize the situations. But again, the president is very careful because you don't want, you see, people already accusing the executive of sponsoring the removal of the speaker. The moment the president gets involved, somebody will come out and say, the president is getting involved, using his influence, to please the other group of people. Then it becomes chaotic. Like
So you feel the president is not involved yet?
No. I can confirm that the president is not involved.
Okay, good.
Because I have one-on-one conversation with him, I can confirm that he's not involved.
Okay,
I can tell you that for sure. He's not involved. As it stands, he's just watching. President Boakai is more mature, than all of us. He knows that the way in which things were being done at the legislature was not correct to some extent. So getting involved was a risky political game. I personally told him not to get involved. In fact, I posted that on Facebook. I said, don't get involved. Because you don't know how the situation going to.
How you say the president is not involved when you have other cabinet ministers attending to session of the majority bloc?
But the Supreme Court just told you
the national instrument before the majority
bloc.
bloc.
The Supreme Court just told you the definition for quorum is for you to have 37. And if 37 person meet and the deputy speaker can preside in the absence of the speaker,
but the speaker is present.
So the Supreme Court did not say again. That's why I said group of confused people. The Supreme Court ruling did not say because the speaker is in the legislature and in the other chamber, it means the sitting in the joint chamber is illegal. So if the Supreme Court has said that the sitting in the joint chamber is illegal, then everybody would have gone to the main chamber. But the Supreme Court did not say anything. So you expect people to not do business. So because they can do business in the wisdom of the Supreme Court, the majority bloc will continue to invite government officials to appear and they will appear.
Okay. Yeah, you can conclude now.
So I just want to say, to members of the legislature, we have to find a way to behave as leaders. We have to find a way to come together, solve the problem in the legislature, do the Liberian people jobs. The country is now being strangulated. There are Liberian civil servants that deserve to take pay in January. With the current, crisis in the legislature, without the budget being passed, we're going to have issues with Liberian taking pay in January and February and going forward. So we appeal to them. We ask them to put Liberia first, come together and see if they can reconcile to solve that difference. And I think the Speaker for Nadikova has taken some bold step. I read from a Facebook post that in the coming day he will have some conversation and he will contemplate on transition. We don't know what the transition is. Restructure of the legislature, I don't know what it means.
Or
No, he said we will contemplate on transition.
We will restructure and contemplate on transition.
So he's going to encourage his members, he's going to reconcile the House, he's going to contemplate on transition. Only he alone can interpret what he wrote on Facebook. Nobody can interpret that for him. But I wish the legislature well, and that's why we, EFFL, presented a proposal that we should return the country to a proportional party list representation form of governance. This is South Africa. So that we change the system of governance and make the country more robust and more responsible. As it stands, the system of governance is not responsible. It makes it look like a country that is not serious. People don't take Liberia serious. So we have to change the system of governance, and we have made that proposal. We're going to be informing the Governing Commission, the Law Reform Commissions. We're going to be working with the National Elections Commission to revisit the laws that governs the country governance system. We want to reform. We are progressive political party, so we think ahead.
At that point, do you think the impartial speaker should resign?
It is in the privy to decide whether he wants to resign or not to resign. It is not me going to tell him to resign.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, folks. That was the voice of the Economic Freedom Fighter of Liberia, Emmanuel Gonquio. So, folks, thank you so much for joining us. This is Liberia Television. My name is Archie Bowen.